Hello, Mosaic Souls. This is Rachael Alexander here, artist and Mosaic Soul mentor, aka spiritual life, wellness, and business coach here at Divine Earth School. And I'm super excited to be coming to you live today to talk about the right way to heal your self-confidence and self-love. In today's broadcast, in today's video, I'm going to share with you 7 myths about creating unshakable self-confidence and self-worth that a lot of times that my clients really struggle with before coming with me, or people who are interested in working with me. These are going to help you to understand the right way to go about creating unshakable self-confidence and self-worth. So let's dive into these. So one of the things that my clients are usually high achieving professionals, spiritual professionals of some sort. They have dabbled in spirituality or dabbled in personal development, but they're really struggling with a lot of self-worth issues, a lot of self-abandonment issues, and this comes out looking like people pleasing. It comes out looking like feeling numbing yourself at night. It comes out feeling like, having fear before you go to bed at night, or feeling lonely. It comes out feeling like, you've achieved all this sort of external success, but yet you still feel so unfulfilled. It shows itself in various different ways, but those are some of the main ways that it shows up in my clients' lives, right? So one of the first myths, right, that my clients struggle with, or people struggle with when they're trying to build self-confidence, is you believe that confidence is something that you get once and that you never have to do anything to work on yourself ever again. So self-confidence is more of a state of being, right? It's you feel confident with like certain events or things are going right or whatever. But really what I help my clients do, the underlying thing, I say self-confidence, but really what I'm helping them build is self-worth and self-esteem. Self-esteem and self-worth is sort of it goes beyond just sort of a temporary state. It's sort of a sense of well-being, sense of knowing, inner knowing, and an inner resilience that no matter what life throws at you, you're good, you are competent, you have coping mechanisms and tools to help you navigate life situations, and you overall generally feel a sense of well-being, fulfillment, joy, passion, excitement for your life, right? So that's really what I'm helping my clients build. And self-confidence, because it is sort of just like a wafting state that can come and go, it is something that you are constantly working on. But when you build that self-worth, when you build that self-esteem, when you build that self-knowledge, that self-awareness, then you start to develop the other things that I just mentioned. And it's something that, you're working on tweaking ever so slightly as life goes on. You do reach a certain baseline of just self-love, self-awareness. But if you're dealing with a harmful inner critic, or you're dealing with someone who is hurtful, or being in and out of toxic relationships, or you're self-isolating yourself from other people because you don't want to get hurt, various reasons, right? These are all sort of signs of trauma. These are all sort of signs of things that, you need to work on, which we'll get into the later points. But the first myth is that self-confidence is something that you get once and you never have to work on ever again. Because we are living in a fleshly earth suit, right? You're always going to have life events come at you, right? But the first thing you want to think about is that, do I have the tools within me, the mechanisms, the thought processes, the mindsets, the physical, actions and things within my toolkit, within my own personal inner world toolkit, that will help me navigate life circumstances and help me continue to have that baseline sense of well-being and mastery over my reality, right? So that's myth number 1. Myth number 2 is overachieving and getting more accolades will make you feel more confident, right? So one of the reasons why this really does not work is that just because a lot of times what my clients are struggling with are they're usually these high achieving professionals, and so they're running after, one achievement after another, one accolade after another, one thing after another. And what is happening is what they're doing is they're running away from the underlying feelings of I am not enough. They're running away from doing the inner healing work of being able to sit down and be with themselves and do that inner healing work that's often very necessary in order to heal these sort of inner, disparities so that they can feel whole, that they can feel that baseline sense of self-worth, right? And so when you're chasing outside of things outside of yourselves, looking for things outside for your self-confidence, for things to come, to reflect back to your self-confidence, things come and go, right? That's the sort of game and play of this Maya, this world that we call Maya, right? But when you don't embrace the fact that you need to do the inner work and you need to sit down and do more, evidence-based methodologies that really help you shift your inner world and shift your sense of well-being, then you're going to continue to create this sense of unfulfillment where things come and go, and maybe you feel a little bit of a high, but you're back to that deep low of despair or, self-pity or overwhelm and burnout, or you continue to attract, toxic relationships, or you continue to be in and out of this sense of is this all my life is here for? What is the purpose of my life, right? Not feeling connected to yourself, not feeling whole, right? So overachieving and getting more accolades is not the pathway to achieving self-confidence and self-worth, right? Myth number 3 is helping others or staying busy will give you a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. This is similar to the second myth, but a lot of times my clients are very much so empathic people. They're very much so highly sensitive people, where they are very much so givers. They're already giving so much, often too much, where they have no boundaries. They don't have any sense of, self-propriety or self-sovereignty within themselves, where they're constantly outside seeking validation or seeking things to fill up that emptiness that they feel inside, or fill up that sense of I am enoughness, wanting to achieve more I am enoughness, right? Seeking to help other people fix their lives, because you automatically assume that if you help someone else fix their lives, then it'll give you sense of peace and well-being, right? And I'm not saying, right, here is what I'm saying, yes, it is good to help other people, right? But are you doing it to your own detriment, right? A lot of my clients, most of the time, are doing it to their own detriment, to the point where they don't even know who they are anymore, and they're avoiding their feelings and emotions, right? So most of my clients already give too much of their time away to others to keep them in this cycle of never healing their relationship with themselves, right? Building a sense of self-worth and confidence, and staying in this loop of unfulfillment, right? So when you're constantly in this loop of trying to place other people's needs before your own, you're not giving yourself to spend quality time with yourself, right? And this doesn't mean that, oh, well, I'm alone, I am single, I have plenty of time by myself. That's not what I'm talking about. Just because you go to the spa and get your nails done, or you're, constantly going out with, a friend, or constantly doing things, right, trying to help people or fix things, doesn't mean that you're giving yourself the time to sit down and do that deep inner work. You're really running away from yourself and the deep work that's really necessary to heal, right? So that's myth number 3, is helping others or staying busy will give you a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. Yes, on a surface level, it will, but that deep inner sort of missing, gnawing thing that's going to always be there will not be healed, right? Myth number 4 is over-identifying with being a martyr, right? So a lot of times, some of my clients come with this belief system around, being identified as, when you identify with any of the following labels, right? A survivor of narcissistic abuse, being codependent, or, being, super mom or super dad or whatever. When you have these sort of ideologies and you're identified with these labels, what happens is a lot of times my clients will use these as excuses in the beginning before they start working with me. Sometimes maybe you find yourself doing this. You use these labels as excuses because you've done all this research. You've Googled, narcissistic abuse, or you've Googled, codependency and stuff like that, and you know more about it, but you identify with it, but you are using the label as an excuse to avoid the work, right? This keeps coming back to that sense of avoidance. Anytime you're avoiding doing deep inner healing work, and I'm not talking about just talk therapy, which we'll talk about in a second, but I'm talking about actually doing something different, that will create different results in your life, right? So when you're over identifying with being a martyr, and I'm using a martyr as a sort of blanket term for these other sort of labels that most of my clients usually have some version of, is you are having a tendency to use this label as a avoidance tactic or a trauma tactic to avoid doing the deep healing work, right? So over identifying with any label is what's going to create that sense of loop of cycle of lostness, of feeling disconnected from yourself and not feeling whole, right? The next thing is myth number 5 is this will sort itself out through time, right? If you have just gotten out of a narcissistic relationship, or, the kids have just left the nest, or, you feel like, oh, okay, well, if I just give this time, that it will heal all wounds, right? Like if I, dealt with a abusive boss, or, I finally left that situation, or whatever the situation is, and you're trying to reestablish your sense of self-worth, right? I'm sorry to say this, but time does not heal all wounds, right? So if you've been in a cycle of chronic self-abandonment, what I like to call self-abandonment, and I'll talk about that more in another video, but chronic self-abandonment or toxic relationships where there was mental, emotional, and or physical abuse, or just plain giving your power away over to others, or having this sense of complacency where you feel like, well, I deserve, thinking that, well, I have so much, I've achieved all these other things, it's external things, what's the point of going after, like I'm being too greedy. So you use your success in other areas to deny yourself that true joy and fulfillment that we all deserve, right? And so when you continue this cycle of, time heals all wounds, you're most likely not going to even see any results. Why? Because your mind, your body, and your behaviors are all wired to continue this cycle. And if you don't get the help you need, you will usually continue to repeat these same patterns over and over and over and over and not see any lasting results, right? So it's very different from, knowing something. And let me just go ahead and go into the sixth myth. The sixth myth, right, is reading books about self-worth, self-love, or talking about it with your therapist is enough, right? That's the myth, right? If I hire a therapist and talk about it or I go to church, or I, vent about it with my friends and stuff like that, that's going to help me heal. Yes, it might help you feel good in the moment, and identifying your issues and self-awareness is the first step. But oftentimes it stops just there at the mental level of awareness, right? So sorry to say that talk therapy is definitely critical for processing emotions and having a sounding board and becoming more self-aware, but it's not enough to change the patterns and behaviors or rewire your mind to create the results you desire, right? So these activities engage your logical mind, but that's only the first step, right, in creating what you desire, which is to be more embodied in your self-confidence and self-worth, right? So it's not enough to just know something logically or to be aware, yeah, I know that I have, an avoidance pattern, or, I'm in this game of blame with my ex, or I'm in this, whatever. It's not enough to just know it. You have to have a methodology and systems in place to actually shift that behavior within yourself so that you can attract more loving relationships, or have the courage and the confidence to start that business, or finally book that trip to Bali that you've been wanting to do, or finally pick up your new hobby, whatever it is that you're trying to create in your life. Without doing this inner healing work, you're really not going to see any transformation in your life. And then the last myth is that self-confidence and self-worth happens only within. So yes, this is partially true, but it is only a half truth, right? Yes, self-confidence, self-worth is an inside job, but it doesn't stop there. You actually need to change your emotional reactions and responses to life through evidence-based healing modalities that allow you to create new habits and patterns, right? So it's not enough to just, like I said in the last myth, to know something. But if you find yourself constantly in this cycle of, every night you're having that glass of wine before you go to bed and turning on Netflix and you're just numbing out in front of television because you don't really want to feel the deep, dark despair that's kind of going on. Or, you know, every time you're with your kids, you feel this sort of, this feeling of like, you know, you love them, but at the same time you feel numb because you feel like, shouldn't I be doing something? Shouldn't something, I'm not feeling whole or connected? Or you find yourself in this pattern of, you know, maybe being, you know, by yourself and feeling like you're filling up your life with all these activities and yet you still feel unfulfilled, right? Self-confidence is an inside game, but you also have to change your responses. Why? Because a lot of times this is traumatic responses. A lot of time my clients have trauma, right? Complex trauma, which really is dealing with sort of just complex trauma, just in a nutshell, is just when you have these sort of mini moments of sort of core wounding that happens throughout your life. It could be through intimate relationships. It could be through, you know, an abusive boss or coworkers at your job, or, you know, friendships that went awry. And so what it happens within you is that it starts to erode your sense of self-worth. It starts to erode your sense of self-awareness and your connection to your intuition. And so with that complex trauma, you start to act out and behave in certain ways. Maybe you find yourself self-isolating and you have no friends because you don't trust anybody, because everyone is a narcissist. You know, you're assuming that everyone's a narcissist because, you know, X, Y, and Z. Or, you know, you just don't trust sharing yourself with others because in the past, all you've done was attract people who, you know, had their own wounds that would seem selfish or, you know, berate you or devalue you in some way. And so you don't feel like safe enough to be yourself out in the world. Or you find yourself, you know, dressing down, you know, and you don't really, you know, do your hair nice anymore, or, you know, take care of yourself or dress up or do things that just make you feel like, you know, if you're a woman, more feminine, or if you're a man, more masculine, and in your, you know, your you-ness, right? You don't feel that connection to yourself in a deep way. And so self-confidence does happen within, but you also, it has to show itself outwardly. It can't just be this mental, you know, emotional thing. Your behaviors also have to show up in a way that supports that, right? And so that's what having, you know, evidence-based, you know, trauma-informed modalities help you to shift these behaviors to create more lasting change. And that's what the power of having a coach does in your life. So if you are a high-achieving professional man or woman who is struggling with these things of, you know, not having self-confidence or self-worth and not feeling connected and whole, then definitely I want to invite you to go ahead and book a call at divineearthschool.com/call to book your complimentary discovery call to see how we can help you get clear on where you are and get clarity on where you want to be and the things that are really holding you back. What is the patterns that are showing up in your life in your own unique situation, and what are the ways that we can help you move forward? And if working with us is that pathway, then we will, you know, definitely reach out and offer you that. If not, we'll definitely send you on in another path that is more in alignment with what you need right now. So definitely visit us at divineearthschool.com/call, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, love, and light.